Welcome back to the channel. I'm Jason with Born Handy, and if this is your first time to the channel, we take on pretty much anything a handyman might be asked to take on, plus a little extra. Today's video could be in that handyman alley, could be in the little extra. I guess it just depends on the type of handyman that you are. It was simply too windy to go fishing today, and so what we're doing instead is we're going to be installing a Livescope on a Garmin equipped boat. Alright, so this is the box. I've got everything broken out. You can see the part number in case you wanted to know that. But this is everything that came in the box. I've got it all laid out here on the deck of the boat, including the instructions. The only thing missing is the instructions had about 6 or 8, maybe 20, I don't remember, different languages. So I have decided to go with what they call perspective mount. It does seem to give you the most options. And for that, we're going to use bags A, B, and C. Before we get all this stuff in the boat, I wanted to take a minute to show you how these things are going to connect. But to start off with, I actually need to flip this guy over. He's mounted upside down in the boat, and it'd just be easier to follow if they were both oriented the same way. This is our transducer. This, in my case, I mounted to the trolling motor, and it simply connects right here to this little port. Now, this thing will only connect one way. It's not possible to plug it up into something accidentally. Now, in my case, I did have to have a cable extender. You might want to just go ahead and pick up the extender just in case you need it. Now, of course, here is our network. Now, for most people, this is going to go directly from this module to your Licescope compatible chart plotter. But in my case, I wanted to display this on 2 screens, so I had to buy a separate piece of equipment, the GMS-10. For most of you, this is probably going to go to any Garmin chart plotter that's compatible with Licescope. But for me, instead of running directly to my chart plotter, I'm going to take and run my network cable, which has an adapter, and then it will run to any of these ports right here and seal right up. And that is going to take care of that. Then these will also get network cables that will go to each of your chart plotters wherever they may be located, just like so. Okay, I want to point out that it really does not matter which one of these you plug into. Think of it as just a splitter. So you know, in my case, I didn't use the 3 middle ones. I just did that here for illustration's sake. But again, it just wouldn't matter which order you plugged these in. Now, of course, the last cable over here is your power, and this is going to run to whatever you have for power. That may be a battery, it may be a power block. Every boat is going to be slightly different, and it's the same over here. This is also going to run to your power. Now, the one that I do want to point out that is going to be just a little different is going to be this last one here that's got a little ground symbol. Now, what they want you to do right here is to ground this. Now, boats don't just have a bunch of ground wires laying around. Now, your boat may have a dedicated ground terminal somewhere. Mine did not. That should go to one of the negative battery terminals on your boat, and that is the setup. It's pretty straightforward. The hardest part of this is going to be figuring out where you're going to mount your components and how to manage the cables. Now, if you don't have a Garmin trolling motor, this comes with a little rubber, I guess for lack of a better word, we'll just call it a bushing to help kind of shore up the diameter of the pole. But since mine's a Garmin, we're not going to need that. What we do have to pay attention to is that this has some sides that tell us which way is up. And there's a slot right through the middle here. And that slot is going to fit into a slot on the front shaft of the trolling motor, just like that. I'm not 100% sure on mounting height. I have to be mindful of this strap here. So I'm going to try to come in just below the strap and just roughly between these two for me, and that's what we're going to go with. Next is the materials out of bag A, and there's a lot of options here too, but it looks to me like my best option is going to be something like this. So basically the short end of what I'll call this L piece is going to attach near the shaft of your trolling motor. And of course you secure that with this knob, or they do supply other hardware, but I'm going to need to adjust this, so we're going to start off with the knob here. Next is the transducer itself and the knob from bag C, the one with the longer handle. There was a lot of options here too. You've got different notches for different views. I'm going to set it for what I think is the most likely view that I'm going to use, which is forward facing. You'll notice the cord is nearest the shaft, and you just tighten this thing down, and you can use more permanent hardware, but if you want to make adjustments on the fly, the knobs are what you're going to want to use. That's pretty secure. One of the things that they really stress here is not to pull this tight and zip tie it down. They really stress that you leave a little bit of slack here to keep pressure off of this joint, and to use black electrical tape, not zip ties. If I wanted to turn this to perspective, I've got to be able to rotate this thing, lock it into place like so, and then I've also got to be able to flip it and lock it in place like this as well. So you need that extra flexibility in your cable to be able to do that. So here you can see we have our transducer mounted to the trolling motor. We've left ourselves plenty of slack to be able to make changes to the position here. We have managed this on the side of the trolling motor that always faces up when it's stowed. And here we've hit our little coil. I've secured the cable here, and this coil allows, of course, for the trolling motor to rotate. This is a fixed point. Then we've come up through here, and we couldn't go through the channel, so we're gonna mount to the outside of the channel like so. But for now, this is just gonna be unsecured until we come up with a better way to do this. We have managed to get through with the rest of the trolling motor cables, and we've come in here. We had to drill a new hole into the hull of the boat. Now, we came out here, and then under this fishing rod holder, and we have run alongside of the hole through here. And we've done that because I chose to mount my sonar module. Yeah, it's a mess right now, okay? Under the console. You can see it back there. You're gonna mount this wherever in your boat you can get to it. You're gonna need to be able to get power to it. You're gonna need to be able to get the cable from the transducer to the box. Now in my case, the cable wasn't long enough to reach, so I had to buy an extension cable. Those are readily available. The next line, this one, is your network cable. Now ordinarily this would simply go to your screen, your chart plotter. But in my instance, I wanted to be able to see this from 2 different screens. So I had to buy a separate piece of equipment and run this cable to that equipment. And I'm going to show you that now. This cable here connected to this cable, which of course in turn simply plugged in to one of the ports here. Then these other 2 cables now go to each chart. This one goes to the screen at the front of the boat. This one goes to the screen at the console. This is the back side of my screen, and this here is just your Ethernet cable like I was describing earlier, and it plugs in, and of course it screws down to create a watertight seal. The only other thing is this guy right here. So they say to go ahead and clip this on somewhere near your actual display. So I've put a zip tie on just kind of loosely enough to prevent that thing from moving. Now the last cable to talk about here is the power cable, and that was actually pretty easy for me. The power box was right here, and it was just 2 wires, one to black, one to red, and then it screwed into this box, and just like that, this was hooked up. And of course the last cable down here was also power. Well, the second to last, we'll come back to that. But the same as before, I simply routed to here, but your mileage may vary. You may have to go to your battery terminals, or there may not be one this close, depending on where you hook this up. The other last cable is this one here. The instructions did say to go ahead and ground this. So ground on this boat was serving as a negative terminal, so we just ran it to the negative terminal on this battery connection extender here, and that was it. With everything installed, it was a matter of just simply managing the cables. It was testing day, and right here you can see a school of very small fish at around 2 to 4 feet deep, and the cast net going right through those and sinking downward on a school of much larger fish that were about 7 to 9 feet deep, and we did pull up a few fish from that haul. And here was another cast, which this one was a complete miss. Now here you can see what I thought was 2 much larger fish that were possibly trailing that school of fish that was down in the lower left corner. So I took a cast, and I tried to get approximately near those fish, and I was able to see my lure. And you can see it just coming on the screen right there on the right hand side. They seem to show no interest in the lure that I was throwing. Possibly saw another fish coming to investigate that lure, and possibly it just went for the school. But today was not fishing, today was testing day. And the one thing that I'm going to say is that this install was a complete success. And that's going to wrap up the Livescope install. Hopefully that has helped you. If it has, be sure and let me know down in the comments. And we'll leave you with a little bit of traditional sight fishing. This is a little bit of a pond update, I suppose. springs here, and these fish are getting ready to spawn.